It. So this is weird. Okay. So I don't really have a script for this, but I feel like since I've been gone for about a month, may as well actually just sort of get down to the nitty-gritty of it and say that this is somewhat of like a channel trailer, but it's mostly just me kind of talking about like the start of this channel and what I decided to do after it started becoming a little bit more successful than I thought it would. In 2017, this channel was basically meant to be just VOD reviews, and it was basically meant to be just me playing video games and just sort of reviewing all of like my footage from tournament matches. And you know, it's safe to say that I have definitely grown out of just being some like local competitor, and I've definitely decided that playing more than one fighting game was just kind of suited for me. You know, I think back on it now, back in, you know, when I was still like a junior in high school, and like what I wanted to do for most of my life. And granted, I had no idea, I had no direction. I don't think anybody at that age had direction, but I knew that I wanted to do something in entertainment, and I knew that I wanted to pursue something in the gaming room. It was kind of my identity for a little bit, and I really had this amazing passion for playing fighting games, and I don't think that I regret any of it whatsoever. But the unfortunate thing is that, you know, near the end of 2024, I sort of was hit with a little bit more of an identity crisis than I thought I would, and it just sort of snowballed into this thing where I had to take like a month away from streaming and doing all of this like crazy, you know, just mostly content creator like shit. And you know, I think a lot of you guys can sort of understand, and I think a lot of you guys are probably going to be a lot easier on me than I have been like to myself. But yeah, I've been treating myself in a not very good way whatsoever. So I mean, I guess at this point in time, it's just mostly like, as much as I just want to bitch and complain and tell you guys how much I have been having problems recently, I mostly just kind of want to take a look back and just sort of reflect on everything that we've accomplished here so far, and I guess just talk about the future of whatever I have planned for this channel and I guess for life. But I mean, you know, that's a conversation that you guys can, you know, have in the comment section if you're excited or want to see something else, I guess. Sorry, I'm just gonna get a little cozy while we're here. So but yeah, when I think back to it, 2017 was definitely the most, like, I don't know, it was definitely the most confusing time of my high school career. I had no idea what I was planning to do, and it didn't help that, like, around that point in time, you were definitely being prepared for the oncoming anxiety that would have been college. I don't know what that's like because I just didn't go, so, I mean, really shows a lot right now, right? The only reason why I started in 2017, at least just being online and being a personality, was because one of my friends at the time convinced me. He knew that I played a lot of fighting games, and he knew that I played mostly Melee, but he wanted me to just sort of expand myself, and he realized that, like, you know, there was some sort of entertaining aspect to watching me play and watching me improve and watching me do all of this crazy stuff. And so he suggested to me that, you know, there's this crazy website, it's called Twitch, try to like stream on it, try to do something on it. And at the time I really only had a Mac, so footage didn't look that great, but it was something. It was something that I could, you know, do in my free time while I wasn't hanging out with my at the time girlfriend, and while I wasn't, you know, like practicing for another upcoming bracket. And so that's what I did. I would say that it was a blessing in disguise, because not only a year later would I end up getting, you know, affiliated, but I would also start pursuing more of the content creator aspect than more of like a competitor aspect. And I don't necessarily regret that. I don't think that's something that I dislike. I think that's something that definitely impacted a lot of what's happened recently, but it's something that I personally think is like a really good, it was a really good start for wherever I was that I was heading. Fast forward, it's, you know, it's 2018, 2019, you know, I had just graduated. I was trying to figure shit out. I was still debating on whether or not I went to college, and it's not that I necessarily expected it, but I decided to do content creation full-time. Granted, although I have deleted the channels in the past, and honestly, I kind of regret it because that old footage was probably the most fun I ever had streaming. My channel started to pop off, and a lot of things started to skyrocket. You know, I started actually making money off of this platform, and a lot of people that would come around really just enjoyed my company, and that made me feel really good because, you know, like I said, after high school or even during high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And even progressing through that motion of life, like it was definitely tough, and having people to support me and realize that, hey, I could be as entertaining as the next guy, it made me feel pretty good. And so, you know, that I'd say that year, 2019, was probably it was definitely more of a positive, like, growth. It was definitely much more of an uphill, or not uphill. What's the word that I'm looking for? It was definitely a rise for my channel, and I started to see it grow like a lot faster than most people were on the platform. It was one of those moments in time where I realized, like, hey, I could do this for a living. I could do it. And at the time I did, because, you know, my family and I, we lived in an apartment, and it was enough to actually get through with rent on, and it definitely helped me out a lot when it came to, like, you know, making a living. However, for some of you who don't know, 2019 would be, or I guess 2019 going into 2020 would end up being the time where everybody went, like, you know, into a pandemic. Everybody was fucking hit by COVID, and everybody went inside. And I would say that was around that time where I started to feel my content fucking just shoot through the roof. For some of you who don't know, and for some of you who haven't been here for a long time, for a while, even though I played Melee and competed on in like a very local level and maybe somewhat of a like state level, it was one of those things where Melee was in the middle of some heat because people didn't know how long it was going to last for, and people didn't know how its staying power was going to hold up through the pandemic. And clearly we all know how that turned out, because Slippy is a fucking wonder. And if you haven't tried it out yet, go ahead. Melee's a wonderful game, and the netcode is fucking beautiful. The point being is that I started to play a lot more Ultimate. And, I mean, hats off to the roster and all of the improvements that they made in Ultimate, but fuck competing in that game. That is one of the worst things I think I have ever decided to do for this channel. Funnily enough, even though it gained a lot of viewership, I started to realize how unhappy I was playing that game. And it sort of put me in that mentality of, well, I have to play a game for viewership, otherwise this tanks. And so during my time in the pandemic, I would essentially play Ultimate until my fingers bled. Let me just say this right now. If you are ever an aspiring content creator or somebody who wants to do that kind of thing, don't play Ultimate. It happened to be one of the most, like, mentally tasking things I had ever done in my entire life. And this is mostly an attack on just Smash, like people who play Smash in general, because although I love these games, we need to stop being so fucking uptight. And, you know, it definitely was something I started to really dislike about where my channel was heading. And don't get me wrong, even though Ultimate is the main catalyst for how I started to feel about content creation, a lot of other games started to feel that way. It wouldn't take long until the release of Guilty Gear Strive, even Grand Blue. At that point in time, like, you know, everybody was playing Tekken 7 and that got rolled back. Street Fighter 6 was starting to, like, creep up as a possible next, like, gen game. And, you know, I would eventually find myself playing a lot of these fighting games. I would expand my knowledge and my stance on fighting games. I would say that at that moment, I think right at that moment, I realized that things were kind of going south. And in the sense of, people were so like just willing to berate me if I wasn't playing the fighting game they wanted me to play. And granted, you know, again, it's content creation. You do what you want to do. I definitely felt an impact when it came to the FGC and when like how they feel about certain fighting games over others. During the pandemic, it hit harder because not only was everybody locked inside, but not everybody could play their favorite fighting game. Companies tried to solve that problem by including rollback in a lot of these like collections that they released, mostly the Capcom fighting game collections and whatnot. But my point still stands is that, you know, around that time, I started to feel a sort of decline, and I started to feel like my channel was becoming a little bit more overwhelming and not necessarily in a place where people could just come and hang out and chill and we could talk about shit, you know? I tried to fight that. I tried to combat that. And I think that banning the flames was definitely not a good idea because slowly over time, I would realize that people were genuinely disinterested in the optimistic look that I had on fighting games. It started to die down in the middle of 2023 when I realized that, you know, maybe like being focused on one game was a good idea, and then playing all these other games on the side and doing videos on them was a good idea. But to no avail. It definitely did not work because by the end of 2023, most of my stats were in Melee, and a lot of them were either a younger audience that had no, like, you know, it was essentially brain rot culture, so if you weren't entertaining for 5 seconds, you were essentially dead to everybody. Yeah, a lot of the younger audience started to appear in my chat, and, you know, it definitely didn't help the message that I wanted to send, and with, like, just how I wanted to do content creation in general, it definitely didn't suit that. So, you know, 2023, I felt like there was a lot of downfall, and it definitely hit harder in 2024 when none of my message was getting through, and I was essentially just streaming just to stream. It didn't help at the time that I was going through a really rough, just sort of rocky relationship, and it didn't help that, you know, my mental state, like, it didn't help that I didn't feel like anybody supported me. I didn't feel like there was any support coming through because, again, as a content creator, if those numbers aren't up, they're down. There's no stagnant, like, there's no stagnant point in content creation. It's either up or down. And it was really, it had really been on a downward slope for a while. At that point, I just did anything I could to keep streaming up. As you can see now, we're moved into a house. I mean, this whole setup is, like, due to change, so stay tuned for that. Yeah, it was one of those things where I needed more of a pushback from the community. And I tried everything I possibly could to keep engagement up, to try and outsource my stuff. And even in 2024, I just started uploading to YouTube again. And while that gave me some numbers, it seemed like a lot of people were still in that same mindset of literally berate any game that isn't the fighting game you like. And that really bothered me. It gave me some sort of doubt in my mind that I could do this full time while still giving out my message. 2024 being a rough year, I think, you know, I think it's like a wonder that I even kept going for as long as I did. Keep in mind, again, started in 2017, and I kept going through till 2024. That's almost 7 years. We're in 2025, and it's almost gonna be 8 years that I've been doing content creation, and mostly just streaming, but again, still doing it for 8 years, man. Like, Jesus Christ. A lot of people usually get their start or, like, get their impact somewhere around, like, 5 years, but you can see why we're here now. I guess my point being is that around the tail end, around December of 2024, I think I had what is known as a mental breakdown. Again, I started getting an identity crisis. I had no idea what this channel was going to do anymore. I feel like I had lost sight of who I was and what I wanted to be. And it didn't help that after moving into here and seeing the numbers that I had to keep up in order to stay in this house, it didn't feel like I could do content creation anymore. You know, as sad as it was, I really did and still kind of do want to just quit. But the insane worker bee part of me, the fucking workaholic that my family is and that I am, is telling me not to. Who knows? Maybe this might be a last hurrah for it. We'll see what happens. We're getting into the part now where we're gonna talk about, like, the future of this channel, but I just want to give some final closing thoughts on the history of where we've been and how it's been up until now, and then whatever my plans are for the rest of 2025, if this is even still viable by the time I'm 26, because if you don't know, you can't live off of your parents' insurance after you're 26, so gotta figure that shit out. But anyways, I took a month off, maybe 2 months, but took a month off, and I just really needed time to reflect. I think it goes without saying, anybody who I was still in contact with during the tail end of December and even all throughout January, I appreciate you, and I love you all, because you honestly have kept me from, like, you know, kind of jumping off of a bridge. Either way, it's one of those things where I took that month off, and I took that time off to just really think about who I was as a person. Was I still an entertainer? 100%. I still make people laugh on the fucking daily. I mean, you see how I'm sitting right now? This is like this is the most Michael Jackson pose you've ever seen in your entire life. It's one of those things where, like, I still make people laugh. I'm still entertaining. I still have this insane passion for fighting games. But I realized that I didn't push that as much as I did, and I think the message got lost in translation when I just kept deciding to play essentially the games that had a younger audience. And, you know, don't get me wrong, I love my younger audience. Shout out to, like, you know, some of the people in my Discord. You know who you are. You guys fucking rock. But not everybody is built to last by watching a 1-minute video. They usually leave after 5 seconds. But my point being is that, you know, I think I realized that not only was I catering to the wrong people, I think I attracted the wrong people in general to keep this channel alive. So what I'm doing now, at least like for the future, is I'm going to try and keep being the way that I am, but not acknowledging the people who could give two fucks. That's essentially what it is. I guess the point that I'm trying to say is that for 2025, I'm just going to ignore you guys. I realize that in order to get my message across, I need to have an uninterruptible version of my stream. And I need to have a uninterruptible version of my message. And, you know, for the longest time, I had always thought, like, what is it that I'm trying to tell these people? What is it that I'm trying to say? Why do I keep pushing this, knowing full well that nobody's going to listen? And the truth is, I am Iron Man. I love fighting games. And I love just seeing the passion in people's eyes who have been doing this for the 30 billion plus years that Street Fighter 2 has been around. So I guess the message that I realized now, and a little bit like, you know, like maybe like a year ago, was that I want to inspire people to push whatever it is that they're passionate about via fighting game. I know that that's not really something that a lot of people can connect with, and I'm sure that if anyone even in here was remotely interested in fighting games, I could list you any amount of them that would suit your general need or your type of playstyle and all that other crazy nonsense. But for me, I mean, I love seeing people persevere, and I love seeing people have that passion, that burning desire to keep going. And that's kind of how I want my content to impact people. Is like, you know, for the longest time I had done ranked grinds, and I wanted people to see, like, you know, you can improve in this allotted amount of time, and, you know, you can feel good about the accomplishments that you make. No one should ever bring you down. And I guess that's eventually what I found myself doing when I was playing a lot of fighting game. And, you know, I think the part where it got lost in translation was I would stream the game and then just not say anything afterward. I wouldn't talk to you guys, essentially what happened. I'd just get sort of sidetracked with something else that was happening, and I guess my way of remedying that was just sort of cutting people off. And I don't feel bad about that. Don't get me wrong. I feel like when it comes to having a legitimate conversation, you do need to cut people off in order to get a point across. But I just want it to be known that at how much I care about this, and I want it to be known that I don't want the message to be lost. I don't want people to forget why it is that I am doing all of this, even if I only just found out about it recently. You know, So I guess my case in point for the future of 2025 and for the foreseeable, like, I guess, time that this channel is up, if people even come to support it, is I'm gonna try and do a lot more videos like these, where I just sit on this couch and sort of treat my camera like a therapist, and I guess just sort of talk about what it is that I love about fighting games, and how you guys should see it as an inspiration to keep doing what you love doing. I know that that's a tough conversation to have sometimes, and I know that, you know, the intense passion can just sort of go over a lot of people's heads. But for me personally, for fuck's sake, I mean, I've been doing this for 8 years now. I lost all of my monetization in 2024, and now I'm sitting here on this couch pleading as a last hurrah to just not forget who I am. So I guess the point in me sort of sitting here and talking about this channel's, a little bit about this channel's history, and, you know, talking about its future, is that I don't want to give this up. So, like, you know, if you like what you saw or like what you heard, feel free to subscribe or follow, or, you know, give me a Twitch sub, join my Discord, hang out with all these other people that really give a fuck about fighting games, and just support the channel in any way that you possibly can. Even if it's watching this video without liking it, that's fucking cool with me. As long as more eyes see it, I guess, is the point that I'm trying to make, you know? Because I really care about this stuff, and I really want to keep doing it. And there are a lot of people who keep pushing me on to keep doing it. And so, I mean, it took me a month, I guess, of touching grass to sort of realize that. But, you know, I guess we all learn in the hardest ways possible. For fuck's sake, I'm not using my arm mic because I feel like it's just a lot more funnier to hold this thing up to my face and sort of treat it like an entity. But, you know, we'll see how well that evolves in, I guess, this version of this channel's content. Again, make sure that you know, do all of the fucking content creator special shit. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you guys want to see. I mean, granted, although I love talking about fighting games and all this other crazy shit, I mean, I have a couple of ideas lined up for just getting people in, just having that little understanding about fighting. Hell, maybe you guys want to hear me do a video about Marvel Rivals, because I have a fucking heated conversation about that every day. I don't know. Maybe you guys just let me know what your favorite kind of food is. I don't know. Grilled cheese is mine. You know? Grilled cheese is fucking sick. If you think grilled cheeses are bad, that... fuck you. Alright. I think I've yapped my fucking my year off. I think I've yapped enough. So, yeah. Hopefully I look forward to seeing you guys in the future.